I'm going to introduce Anthony Davies, who is the Chief Revenue Officer with Forest Solutions, and Tricia Nagy, who is in marketing with Forest Solutions. And with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Anthony.
Thank you very much, Chris. Hopefully you can hear me properly. I've been having challenges with flipping between Teams and Zoom. My laptop doesn't like it, but good afternoon, everybody. I still see the numbers ticking up, so I'll pad out my introduction a little bit. I'm very excited to be presenting to you guys this afternoon the rise of hospitality. Anybody that might have seen an article I wrote on this in law.com recently, I think we're going to put a link to that in the chat. But before I get into what I mean by the rise of hospitality, I thought it makes most sense talk you through what the agenda is today, which will start with an introduction on me, Forest Solutions, and some of the things that we do for law firms and other industries. I'm going to go through, I call it the background. How did we get here? I don't think I'm going to tell anybody anything particularly new in how did we get here. I think everyone knows the last 2 years have been a challenge. And but what we did, I think it was about 12 months ago, we surveyed our legal client base and a few other law firms in the AmLaw 200 to really understand what were the prime concerns, and I'm going to share some of that information. Then talk a little bit about the law firm return to office, the $1 million question or the $1 billion question. Where are law firms going to land compared to other industries? And then we'll get on to what I believe is that from what we're seeing in banking and consulting clients, the solution to getting it right, which is a focus on workplace experience, which is really the hospitality focused services that enable the soft facilities in a workplace. I've got a case study. I'm not permitted to talk to the name of the firm that we're referring to, but you might guess along the way. But one of our consulting clients announced a while back that they plans to go to 100% flexibility. Now we hear 100% flexibility quoted a lot in the press, and I think it's really important to dig into what that actually means and what are the services that are being provided and how do we enable it. Some interesting insights there that I hope you find. And then I think this is probably going to be about 30 minutes of presentation. More than welcome to interrupt me at any point with questions, whether that be in the chat or anything else. Love to keep it interactive if possible. So, quick introduction to Forest Solutions for those of you who are not familiar with us. Our main service offerings are on-site outsourcing and staffing. From an on-site outsourcing perspective, in very simple terms, we're talking about office services, mail reprographics and records management. And then from a workplace experience, we're talking about front of house, workplace concierge, hospitality and events. And full disclosure, workplace experience is what we're talking about today. Workplace experience is where we've seen rapid growth in investment over the last 6 months from clients and prospects alike. Forest Solutions is we're about 1,500 plus employees, but you'll see from below we're growing very, very fast because of that explosion in workplace experience. And the way we keep up with that is we have our own in-house recruitment team. So we have 45 recruiters, some of which sat right outside my office here in Manhattan, but they're spread really across the country. They're hiring directly for clients and also hiring for our outsourcing division. 2021 was a record year for us, like it was for most of the legal industry. we secured 27 new clients, and almost everything has been in workplace experience. Return to office, hospitality focused services on the on-site outsourcing side. Most of that growth has come from banking, consulting, and advisory. But we are starting now to see some law firms start to really accelerate their return to office plans and really make more of an investment in this whole workplace experience. This might be difficult to believe, but because of the growth in our workplace experience outsourcing, we've actually been hiring about 20 people, between 15, 20 odd people per week for the last 6 months. So we started really to see this accelerate in July, August last year. And then we've added clients all over the country. And the first thing that everybody wants is to hire back all the people that they either never had before, because they're looking at an elevated level of hospitality, concierge hospitality, or it's people that are hiring back roles that were they let go during COVID, or they downsized during COVID. So a quick introduction to me. I've spent 22 years working with law firms, 12 years at LexisNexis, and 10 years on the on-site outsourcing. I worked in London for Pitney Bowes and Williams Lee, and I moved over here actually in 2015 and joined Forest Solutions nearly 2 years ago. We work with about 50 law firms across the US, mainly in the AmLaw 200. We have 6 banks, 5 of the global advisory firms, 2 of the top 6 accounting, and a whole bunch of Fortune 500. And as I say, it's mainly in the office services and workplace experience. So this slide's not news. Everybody knows that 2020 and 2021 record-breaking years for law firms. Revenue growth, profit per equity partner growth, US productivity, whether you're the AmLaw 100 or AmLaw 200 or beyond, it's been a record-breaking year. But that whole thing happened while offices were closed. And this is what creates the biggest challenge for everybody. If we were able to be so successful without offices open, why should we return to the office? So we polled our client base, and we asked them, this is in May last year, we asked them where they saw themselves in 12, 24 months, and what the biggest concerns were about returning to the office. Well, it was interesting. Most of the firms that we spoke to were less concerned about the immediate impact of the pandemic and wellness, et cetera, et cetera. Most were already forward thinking to, we are going to be in some kind of hybrid environment, and our current office is not set up for a hybrid environment. And what I mean by that is our current office is set up for somewhere in the 80% desk occupancy range. And if it was to reduce to 40% occupancy, which is your 2 or 3 days a week in the office, really what you're left with is a half empty office most of the time. The other thing is, in the hybrid environment, people are most likely to be coming to the office for more collaborative reasons rather than for individual work. So the office probably needs to be redesigned and probably needs to have more collaborative space. And there was huge opportunity in all of that to reduce the overall footprint. But this was in May last year. There were really no plans back in May to do this. But what we're now seeing are these plans coming to fruition. So 83% of firms back in May documented that meeting room management and new types of support were critical for the new normal. And then the observation that the cost per lawyer for office space is enormous, and therefore the opportunity to save money by reducing the need for real estate or making the real estate more flexible and reducing the footprint was enormous if there was a way to tap into that. Cushman & Wakefield, probably most of you saw this report at the back end of last year as well. Cushman & Wakefield polled a lot of the AmLaw 200, and their survey suggested that the solution to this, for law firms at least, is in a small scale to begin with, but they expected 75% of law firms to utilize some type of hoteling over the next 5 years. Now, the problem is hoteling, especially in the legal industry, has a bad reputation. Hoteling is the number one thing people think of when they think of hoteling is, I just lost my desk. I no longer have a desk to sit at. Whoever's desk I'm going to be using, will I even get a desk? Will I be able to sit next to my team? Will the desk be clean? Hoteling has a really bad reputation. But despite that, 75% of law firms expect to implement some kind of hoteling in the next 5 years. And this is really, actually, this is another chart that shows the same thing. Some of you may have seen the announcement today that Instant Group have just acquired, just become the largest flexible office company in the world, and they polled all of their clients to determine what kind of return to office strategy each industry was going to have. I actually spoke to their global head of strategy in London about this, and unsurprisingly, banking, finance, and investment clients are expected to be the most returned to office. And I can confirm from our client base, all of our discussions with banking and finance has been how to implement either mandated or semi-mandated back to office 4 or 5 days a week. And then most of the other industries are somewhere in the middle. 2-3 days a week in the office, not really enforced. But the question really is, where does legal land? Is legal going to end up on the return to pre-COVID banking, finance, and investing type approach, 4 or 5 days a week in the office? It certainly does not look like that right now from the law firms that I speak to. The great resignation and the concern around attracting and retaining talent is really not driving mandated mass returns to office. However, there's a reluctance to go down the fully flexible route, like tax accounting, consulting, and tech companies. Some tech companies have done. Where will law firms land? Probably somewhere in the middle. But the point behind this slide is both return to offices, whether it be fully flexible or returning to pre-COVID ways, both of them require a complete redesign and rethink of the way that the office is used. And the number one concern for all of our tax accounting consulting clients and banking, finance, and investing clients is, how do we improve, change, elevate, upgrade the workplace experience? And the rise of this workplace experience role, lobby concierge, workplace concierge, hospitality concierge, and the injection of hospitality into all the soft facilities type roles that existed pre-COVID, but are now critical to welcoming, enticing, and attracting people back to the office, all come under this umbrella of what we call, what is increasingly being referred to as workplace experience. Now, on the banking side, what we've seen from our banking clients is a real influx of people from the hotel hospitality industry. So we've seen banks hire senior leadership from Ritz-Carlton, from Mandarin Oriental, and other big luxury hotel chains to work alongside facilities and really implement kind of luxury 5-star hospitality type services in the banking world. We've seen all sorts of spa-like amenities, luxury meal services, barista coffee services, massive increase in the amount of soft furnishings through the office. And really, for me, it feels like the banking, finance, investing are going to mandate mass return to office 4 or 5 days a week, but they're going to make it as pleasant as an experience as possible. And the nicer the experience, the more likely you are to retain those staff or attract new staff. And really, on the banking side, the expenses has been of no object to some of the projects that we've been working on. So far, it seems to be having a positive effect. Although many people are being pushed back to the office, they're actually not as unhappy about it as you would expect. On the consulting side, and I've got a case study about this because I want to demyth the whole fully flexible claims that are being made. But workplace experience has been implemented on a grand scale. In some organizations, literally hiring dozens and dozens of people to help employees with flexible working, the flexible guidelines, managing the reservable workspaces, helping with the reservation technology. Many of our consulting clients have implemented all sorts of amenities like yoga centers, wellness, sleep pods, food and beverage. And actually, interestingly, several of them have moved their offices to a 24/7 opening. Now, they haven't moved it to a 24/7 opening so everyone can work more, but they've moved it to 24/7 so more employees can leverage the benefits of the office environment, the workplace experience, in and out of hours. One of our big consulting clients in New York shows sports games through the weekend and has bars and the coffee shops open through the weekend so the employees can come in and use the space outside of the traditional 9 to 5 working hours. So we're seeing a complete different approach depending on whether clients are returning to office on a grand scale or whether they're implementing full flexibility. But the common theme through both is a massive increase in this role that we umbrella as the workplace experience. So workplace experience. We think it's the solution, whichever route you go down. Certainly, it's helped drive huge growth in our business over the last 12 months. But really, in summary, we call it the hospitality-based, high engagement, white glove service. And the purpose here is to guarantee the optimum guest experience. And by guest, what we're starting to hear is a lot more like hotel language creep into the workplace, into the office experience. I think you'll probably find in the restaurant industry, it's referred to as meet, greet, and seat, or meet, greet, seat, and eat. But really, that's what we're talking about. We split workplace experience into 3 areas: meet and greet, the front of house. Security falls into this. Security has historically not been the most welcoming way to enter a building, but security, reception, badging, and announcing the meet and greet is the first stage. The guest transition, I think, is the biggest area of investment for a lot of our consulting clients who have implemented massive flexibility across their offices. So if you think about it in terms of a hotel. So in a hotel, you have reception on one side. They check you in, they badge you, they give you your key and your room number, and you're off. But then the other side of reception is concierge. So what we're starting to see a lot more now is this lobby concierge service that can help you with other things you might need once you get into the office, especially if your office has implemented flexible workspaces and other things, whether they might be the additional amenities or something similar. So the lobby concierge helps with the hot desk, meeting room booking, and then business services. The fully flexible worker needs to remember their laptop and they need to remember cables and other things, but they often don't. So the rise of these kind of business services as part of the guest transition, and that's whether you're an employee, a client, or someone coming for an interview. This kind of hand-holding service to get you to your part of your building. And then the final piece of workplace experience is what we call the destination. And at that point, we have workplace concierges. So I'm going to tell you about a client in a minute that has implemented 2 workplace concierges in every floor, in every building across the whole country. It's a multi-million-dollar investment, but in return, they don't need as much real estate. The workplace concierge are taking the first line of IT support, AV support, managing the community spaces. They're managing the hot desk and organizing food and beverage and events on a floor-by-floor basis for visitors to the building. For us, the 3 critical elements of being successful at delivering workplace experience, one is the ability to recruit workplace hospitality talent. And for that, you need a couple of things. You need a lot of recruiters, and you need to know what you're looking for and where to hire from, because many of these workplace hospitality employees are not coming from the office environment. They're coming from hospitality, the hotel, and private membership clubs, and increasingly from the restaurant and another hospitality type places. We then very quickly realized that there was no real focused workplace experience training. So we nuanced a whole bunch of training from the Ritz-Carlton and Cornell School of Hospitality to nuance an office-focused workplace hospitality training program, which feels a lot like hotel hospitality, but it's focused more on the office. It's about getting people up and working and billing quickly. And then finally, it's about creating continuous feedback and improvement to make sure that what you're delivering continues to improve. So that's kind of the 3 elements that we find. This is an article that many of you, I'm sure you read, the end of last year, from Legal Week, a lawyer who was excited to come back to the office. Hybrid working fails because anytime you go in, there are only a handful of people and it feels like a morgue. The mood of yippee, we are back in the office, is felt by a small but vocal minority. And really what this means is if you try to implement hybrid working in the old office without any support, without any change, this is what you end up with. You end up managing emptiness. But if you get it right, you can make material improvements in real estate ROI and reduce space and cost. And crucially, as we push for more and more people in the office more often, not necessarily full-time, but more often, attracting and retaining talent, the big talking points across the world right now, and ultimately building culture. I believe that culture will have a huge impact on loyalty, and not having anybody in the office for the last couple of years, regardless of what organizations have tried to do to help to build teams and build culture. Nothing is as effective as having people in person. So the more we can do to attract people and teams to the office 1, 2, 3, 4 days a week, whatever it is, it does help with more than just culture, but loyalty and retention. Take a pause for a second. I want to do a case study now. This is a consulting client that we have. I won't mention the name, but because they won't allow us to. And interestingly, we have more of these workplace experience contracts that we're implementing. Increasingly, the clients do not want us to mention the names, don't want us to mention that we are working with them, because they are increasingly seeing this workplace experience as a differentiator. This is the way we're going to attract and retain more talent from our competition. And we don't want too many people knowing what our plans are. But this particular client asked us to deliver 70% desk utilization despite having a fully flexible workforce. So that means we have to figure out the optimum number of desks on a daily basis. It changes by day. So we have what we call dynamic real estate optimization, which is opening and closing floors based on the number of people that will be in the office that day. I'll talk in a second about how we know that. We're managing around 60,000 customer meetings annually for this client. Real-time support of reservable desks, office and meeting rooms. They asked us to hire and train 2 FTE per floor in 19 locations. So that was over 150 people since the back end of last year. That's been a big driver behind the 20 people per week we've been hiring for our clients. And really, ultimately, deliver a consistent, elevated hotel-like meet and greet experience and a ongoing customer satisfaction of 4.7 out of 5, with a minimum of 5,000 responses a year. To implement something like this has been in discussion, planning, and rollout for about 9 months. I am seeing law firms at similar stages, but really this is one of the most advanced customers in terms of their return to office. I want to talk a little bit about what fully flexible really means. So in this particular case, there's 3 different types of fully flexible. I'm not advocating for any of these. Everybody's different, and what I do like is the fact that you have choice, but your choice has implications. And so you got to figure out which is best for you. I personally have a 2, a 3, a 2, a 5, and an 8-year-old, all 3 boys at home. I'm all for full-time in the office, but I know not everybody's the same. So fully remote, what that actually means in this particular case is that the employee loses access badge. They are only allowed to visit offices for meetings as a guest, and they have to sign in as a guest, and their salary is adjusted based on geography. Extreme, but you have choices. And the second choice is you become flexible. You need to be in the office 3 days a month, which really means you need to live nearby. But you're only allowed to book desks when you come to that office within 72 hours. And then the full-time office, which is 4 days a week in the office, that gives you the full ability to book desks 14 days in advance. Your team can be placed in the same locations. You can book team meetings and neighborhoods, as they call them, for your team. And the flexible staff can't get in the way because they only have the ability to book 3 days in advance. Again, not our policy. Our job is to make this work. We work with our clients to make their policies work. This particular client, nobody has a desk, 0, not even the CEO. But what is available is fully reservable partner offices. So they have 2 different size offices, private offices, 110 square feet, 2 exterior facing windows for a partner, 80 square feet, 1 partially frosted interior window for a managing director or director. Everything else is hot desking. There are meeting rooms and huddle rooms available for private video conferences, and I'll talk about that in a second. But what they've actually done with most of their office is really blurred the lines between work and home with what they call free addresses. There's hundreds and hundreds of free address spaces around the building, and I'll give you some idea of what they are in a second. So this is a free address, as well as the yoga rooms that they've implemented. They have soft furnishing areas. It's a little bit like I guess the VIP lounges at the airports. There's one room. This is all real. This is today a global consulting firm has been running with these type of facilities for many months. The treadmill desks are very popular. You have to get in early to use those. They obviously have more private areas for phone calls, and there's a whole range of things. And then finally, what they've done is by implementing 24/7, their office is open 24/7. They use the offices at the weekends for more social activities. They show the game, they play games, they have bars, they have social events. And we manage we manage all of these services for this client on a 24/7 basis. While we don't at Forest Solution, I see some questions coming in the chat. So let's take a. Okay, how are the firms handling mail and confidential items in a free address system? Great question. So the big growth area for me in terms of technology during all of this has been digital mail. We work with 2 or 3 major vendors for digital mail. What we've observed during COVID is a lot of law firms implementing, if you like, a homemade digital mail solution, which is in no way secure and in no way integrated with the document management system, probably creates more risk than benefit. Really, there are 2 or 3 technology systems that we can recommend that will digitally copy the mail and upload it to the document management system, and it won't be sent to your email as such. A link will be sent to your email so that you can decide whether to download that document and be responsible for it. But we're seeing a massive uptick in the volume of law firms that have taken up true digital mail solutions. Hopefully that answers that question. Other than that, there really is no other acceptable way to deliver mail in the free address system. Reservable desks. As I say, our role is making this system work. So there are controls. You can reserve desks, mobile apps. You can use the app to locate colleagues. That the apps includes maps, and importantly, the apps include permissions. So if you're a partner, you will have the ability to book an office. If you're not, you'll only have the ability to book a hot desk. Importantly, the hot desk booking system gives us visibility, which allows us to determine on a dynamic basis how many floors should be open to make the optimum use of the real estate. And then also, obviously, less important now, but through COVID, when this was being implemented, limiting the number of people in certain rooms based on the most recent guidelines, pushing people to bigger rooms if they had a bigger group coming to the meetings. And really our job in all of this is the high touch support. This is the hospitality. This is the managing the space. This is resetting, cleaning the rooms, refreshing supplies, creating the reports so that we can make decisions based on those trends. And then the first line of AV support and space conflict management. So the other piece that's included in that technology is the reservable meeting rooms, which allow you to, let me just check. For physical files, how are flex and remote customers providing access to physical files? I mean, it's actually a very similar answer to the digital mail. One particular, in fact, 2 of the digital mail solutions that we use most heavily have digital records components attached to them. So you can request a file, request a file, and then it can be digitized and sent to you, or it can be you can head to the records room to collect it. But I'll just highlight that this is a case study for a consulting firm, which has huge records management. Firms dipping their toe into these type of solutions. Law firms are offering flexible workspace on a voluntary basis. In many cases, so law firms are offering flexibility on a voluntary basis. Sometimes it's a negotiation. And many of the firms that we've talked to that are implementing this are only really doing one floor at a time, or 10 or 20% of their operations. So digitally leveraging digital technology for mail and for records has been critical for success. Where these type of things have been implemented wide scale. The meeting room technology, there's all sorts of systems out there. I won't recommend any. We're agnostic when it comes to technology, but really you can choose your meeting rooms, you can book your catering. What we've seen more and more is iPads outside the room that tell you if the room is available or not. And then increasingly what we're seeing where large volumes of flexibility have been implemented are smart sensors to alert if a room has been booked and then it's not being used. Our job in all of this is to check who booked it, see if they still need it. If they don't, return it back to the system, and then deliver more available space for the people that come into the office. And that's all part of the workplace experience solution. We then also are able to set up rooms based on how a person wants a room set up. It's all bookable within the system. I mentioned before about huddle rooms. This particular client has identified that sometimes you don't need a meeting room. Sometimes you only need a quiet video conferencing room. And these are 2 or 4 people rooms with a video conferencing capability so that you can have 2 people, 3 people sat together. These rooms actually have mainly sofas and soft chairs rather than desks, but they enable video conferencing on a more kind of personal basis. Very useful if you're half the team's in the office and half's at home. I thought I'd throw in the job description of a workplace concierge. As I said, for this particular client, they've put 2 of these on every floor nationally, and they're responsible for owning the visitor experience. So they plan this resource requirements on a 72-hour basis. Friday's nowhere near as busy as Thursday, so we don't have as many people in the office on Friday. We are responsible for the warm welcome. Stop doing anything that can wait. Greet guests. It's a white glove hospitality type experience, elevated beyond anything they were used to before COVID. There's service levels around how often someone's kept up to date if they're waiting for their guest. We're also looking at people that are taking up the option of flexibility and coming to the office regularly. So what are their food and beverage preferences, hotel preferences? As I said before, the concierge is responsible for the first line of technology, AV support, making sure that every desk has a cable, really anticipating and making it as seamless as possible, that the experience of whoever's visiting the office will have a very pleasant experience. Return unused workstations to the reservation system, check conference rooms at the beginning and end, ensure meeting rooms are well stocked, table and chairs are neat. You know what? One of the big pieces of feedback we got in the early days was that if a desk didn't look like it was brand new with the cables coiled up and everything sanitized, no one was reusing it. So the intention of creating a flexible environment was great, but if it didn't look pristine, it wasn't used. And then finally, just being a resource that's visible. I think of it like help desk at the moment is on chat or by phone. This is about creating a visible help desk, walking the floors 2 or 3 times an hour. At this particular client, they wear distinctive uniforms, so you know exactly who they are and how they can help. Wrong way. A few minutes. So training. As I said before, we didn't find the office nuanced hospitality training that we felt we needed to deliver what our clients were asking for. So we went and built our own. We got external consultants and we created this 7-stage training program that everybody goes through when they join the business in one of these roles, and then they'll be put through refreshers on a continuous basis. And really, it feels more like hotel training than workplace training, but that's the point. We have our own experts in-house who have gone through Cornell's Certificate of Hospitality, the gold standard, which is the Ritz-Carlton. And then we pull guest speakers through the training, both live in person, but also through recorded webinars. It's all managed through either in-person training or through our online training center. But everyone needs to be certified in workplace experience to be able to deliver this for our banking and consulting and law firm clients. So in summary, return to the office. I don't believe that the guests to the building will have a good experience unless these three pillars are approached. One is the redesign of the facility, considering the reduced footprint, more collaboration space, more reservable spaces, really optimized based on what your hybrid rules look like. And then there's a layer of technology, meeting room booking, hot desk booking, catering, facilities requirements, et cetera, et cetera. If you stop there, in our experience, it doesn't work. What makes a difference and what we're seeing, and when I talk about the rise of hospitality, it's that top box. It's the workplace hospitality that's delivering that workplace experience. Hospitality concierges, but also the same training is put the reception and security and managing the meeting rooms in a hotel-like experience. Thank you. 45 minutes. I give 15 minutes for questions and discussions.
Anthony, I'll ask a quick question. So you have, 50 law firms and of course work with many more than that, probably not just here, but in the UK and other countries. Throw out an example of your most forward-thinking law firm in the world and the United States. Just rattle off some of the things that they've done to really stand out from the crowd.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give two examples. Again, many of these see this as a differentiator to attract talent. So they don't want names bandied about, but there's a very forward-thinking firm in San Francisco that we brought on about 6 months ago. They, obviously being in San Francisco, they work with a lot of tech startup type companies. They put hospitality concierge type people on in every building in Palo Alto, San Francisco, and New York, really to sit alongside reception. It's not reception, it's concierge. We're given the remit of just make the experience for anyone that comes back to the office, make it spectacular. Find, whatever they need, whether it be to a workspace, whether they need catering, whether they need restaurant bookings, or whether they need, dry cleaning or whatever. And they put all that in place for a month before anybody came back to the office. So there was a whole month-long training program to get them up and ready. We also have just launched with a hedge fund, basically a hedge fund, investment fund. And this particular organization went and hired 5 of the senior directors from Ritz-Carlton, Mandarin Oriental, and just created a whole division which is focused entirely on hospitality. And it's about the white glove luxury feel that you would get at Mandarin Oriental or at the Ritz-Carlton. This particular organization, I have to say, is mandating a return to office. So they've got to do a really good job, of welcoming people back, because they're forcing people back. I had a question actually. Could you put up the early slide about law firms just before instant? So let me. I guess it was this slide. Is that the one, Matthew? Yes, it works. Yeah, so, but in both cases, one case of those two examples is a law firm that has made no rules and regulations about return to office. They just decided to create that real white glove personal service to attract people back. And in the other example, it's a hedge fund that is forcing everybody back, but saying it's going to be worth it. I went to this particular client recently. They have offices in Greenwich, Connecticut, and I went there for a meeting, and they said, "Do you want to grab some lunch?" And I assumed we'd go out for lunch or something. And no, that in the they put kitchens on every floor now, and the food that they laid out, which was effectively free. I mean, I felt like I was attending a wedding or something. It was an unbelievable buffet of healthy, some not healthy, and a whole variety of food. They're spending an absolute fortune to make that return to office feel. I mean, I think most people think of return to office when they're thinking, how are we going to make it work? What are we competing against? You're competing against what your competitors are doing. You're also competing against what it felt like to work from home. And at home, you know, you have your own personal air conditioning. You have a sofa. You can go for a walk whenever you want. You have your own space, your own private bathroom. You have your own supplies, your favorite foods, everything. It's a tough one, you know. And whenever I get into these conversations, it's interesting talking about what everybody's plans are, and where I see the role that we play is helping you make your plans work better, rather than helping you with your plans. So this slide that I put back up, this was it wasn't a survey that we did. And you can, it's probably easy enough to look up the Cushman and Wakefield survey that they did, but there's absolutely, in my experience, an increased interest in dipping the toe in hoteling. And a couple of firms that I've spoken to recently, the way that they've gone down this route is to ask for volunteers. Say, you know, if you want to work from home 3 days a week instead of or 2 days a week, that's fine, as long as you don't mind sharing a desk. And interestingly, a surprising number of people have said, okay. So you don't have to mandate hot desking. And by the way, all of the big consulting firms, that's how it all started with them. They didn't suddenly decide we're going to go down this route. It was on a voluntary basis, and it grew. For me, it's like, you don't want to shut all your offices and make it a completely virtual firm. I know those exist for a certain end of the market. You want to use your real estate for what it was built for, creating an environment for collaboration, for inviting clients, for entertaining clients, for meeting with clients, meeting with your team members. But you don't want to make your real estate drive your employees away because you're forcing them to be there the whole time. So it's finding that balance. Any more questions from anyone?
I don't see any. Anthony, Trish, I really want to thank you all for coming on with us today. I'm sure I'm not alone in thinking that was, excellent information. We talked a little bit about this in our pre-call. It's like everybody wants to get everybody back to the office in a law firm and, regain the culture and collaboration. But many times a lot of firms can't put a definition on what, that is. So you've done a really good job of this. We're proud to have you as an LIC sponsor, and we will be in touch soon. Okay. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you very much.